Welcome to the Business Mechanics Show. I'm your host, Vaughn Sigmund, the co-founder of Results Driven Leadership. We provide the knowledge, skills, and tools you need to advance your career and business success. And whether you're just starting out or been running a business for years, we've got the advice, the tips to help you stay ahead of the competition. All from real executives, not trained trainers, who have learned from a book. Nope, we're all been there and we've all done that. So come to us, visit rdltraining.com for more information. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of making your career and business more successful. In today's podcast, I've been thinking about this all week. I'm excited about sharing this with you. I want to share with you how to avoid the top 7 leadership mistakes that drive your employees away. Listen up. Listen up to these and see if you or your organization, if you're a business owner, are making any of these very common mistakes. Now, I may have seen almost all of them this week. Everybody's learning, everybody's growing, but we all have things we can do better. And I've encapsulated 7 today that I think is going to be very helpful for you to identify and avoid. We're going to dig into some of the best leadership tips to help you compensate for these mistakes. I've used them, I've seen them used, and they help tremendously. The leaders who deploy these tips I'm going to share towards the end of the podcast, they have the lowest turnover. And low turnover is almost always a sign of great leadership. So let's start getting into the mistakes first. I'm going to talk about the pain points. I'm going to talk about the difficulties, some of the things you may or may not be doing. We're all with the premise that managers they've gotta focus on improved leadership to avoid employees quitting. Employees quitting, turnover, is super costly. You know that. It's very disruptive to the organization. And when employees quit, managers have to spend time and resources recruiting and interviewing and training. You're missing a person out there somewhere, so it slows down the office or the facility's productivity. And it always creates negativity to the bottom line. In addition to that, high turnover can lead to loss of expertise. And I don't know that everybody really thinks about this deeply enough. Turnover really is more costly other than dollars and cents. You're losing experience. And that experience is very difficult and very costly in many ways to replace. And a good leader, well, they create a positive work environment and fosters a sense of belonging amongst their employees. And that leads to increased job satisfaction and loyalty, and ultimately reducing the likelihood of your good employees, your experienced employees, or even your average employees from quitting. And I want to make sure, are you doing everything you can do to minimize this? Even if you just have a handful, if you lose one, it can be a huge disruption to the force. So by you listening to this podcast, I know that you're committed to investing in your leadership skills. So thank you for coming. Thanks for choosing this show as being a resource for you to improve it. I aim to deliver today some key points around your current leadership style, where you need to go, and most importantly, the outcome. The outcomes are great to improve the leadership, but one of those great outcomes is hanging on to your team, retaining your top talent, attracting new talent. Good attracts good. And this will all lead to less job stress, less workload on you, improved productivity, improved profitability, and certainly you're going to be more competitive in the marketplace and more competitive in your career. If you're somebody that's climbing the career ladder, you being able to do the things and avoid the mistakes, do the things I'm going to share with you later, the leadership tips I'm going to share with you later, and avoid these mistakes, you're going to soar above everybody else in your organization that's competing to get ahead. Promise you. And if you're interested in getting more training you know you need to improve your management leadership skills, please take advantage of our results-driven manager training. It's all self-paced. It's online. You can take it whenever you want to for as long as you want to. It's all trained, as I said previously, by executives, not someone who's been trained out of a book. And it's only $47 per month with unlimited access. You don't have to sign a contract. I'm not going to hook you into some long-term commitment. And I've linked in the show notes for you to check it out and sign up. We've had, and I'm so pleased to say this, we've had over 1,600 people sign up so far this year. Why don't you be one of them? Come on, join us. Let's get going. So back to the topic. When managers are able to retain employees, well, guess what they can now do? They give up all that recruiting, training, interviewing time, all the problems that new people and inexperienced people create for them, and they can focus on the other important aspects of their work, such as growth, such as their own development, rather than constantly having to replace people. It's so much easier to grow with experienced team members. In fact, I would challenge that anybody can successfully grow with a bunch of newbies. So you got to hang on to this talent you have working for you, even if they're just average. And if they're below average, let's find out why they're below average and work on that. And that's why you're here today listening to this podcast to work on improving your leadership. Because employees quitting is not something you want to be dealing with. So let's first of all think about the workload that turnover creates for you. You've got the recruiting, interview, and training, like I've mentioned. That's super time consuming. It's costly. It's a distraction to your normal day. And very often, because you got so many pressures and commitments that you have to live up to, that you may, I've seen it happen a lot, make a rush decision just to have a damn body in the seat. So you can get it done, you can tell the boss, yeah, I hired somebody, which just leads to problems. That is rarely, if ever, a good approach, is a pressured hire. Don't just fill a seat. That's a whole nother show. To me, the biggest loss, the biggest cost is the loss of expertise and experience. Because when experienced employees leave, then, okay, I'm missing a person. I have to rely on other less experienced staff to fill the gap, which is naturally going to lead to lower productivity, likely to lead to lower quality of work because they're in their learning curve. When there's this loss of intellectual capital, you're losing this valuable knowledge and skill set that's going out the door with this person. And that's very hard, and it takes a long time to replace that because you have to allow people to work through the learning curve, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. If you're not working on your leadership at the level you could, committing to changing your habits, it's probably because you've got pressure and deadlines looming. You got your boss breathing down your neck, and you're under pressure to double down on command and control, that command and control management style that just gets things done in the short term. And frankly, people, that does not work for anybody. Command and control management never works. Long term, it'll get things done in the short term. But long term, you'll never grow a business or grow a team successfully with that. So you have to work on your leadership skills. And that's why you're here today. Because if you're under too much pressure, you're barking, you're in control of everything, that decreases the morale. It increases very often your administrative work. Because when you're hiring new people, you have more paperwork. You got records to keep. You got to train people. There's an impact on customer service. And believe me, everybody in your company is involved in customer service. Everybody serves the customer. There is no lights that kept on without clients, without customers. And when you've got inexperienced or lower quality individuals working with you, that's going to impact your customer service, which runs a huge risk of losing a key client. So let's talk about this decreased productivity. Because even if you hire a suitable person, a person that may be experienced, it's going to take some time for that person to learn your company's approach to filling that job, to performing that job. And that throws your productivity out of whack for some period of time. And if you're not familiar with the competency curve, let me talk about this. It's a good visual aid. And I've drawn this thing on 1 million whiteboards. See, people move through different stages as they acquire knowledge and skills. And it's measured from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. And there's multiple steps along the competency curve. So the journey from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence to unconscious competence, well, that's the competency curve. So the first stage is unconscious competence. You don't know nothing, and you don't know what you don't know. And that's when an individual is not aware of their lack of knowledge or skills in a certain area. They may know a lot of things. They just don't know your company's approach to that, policies, procedures, software, processes, policies. And they may not even realize what they need to learn. The second stage, or the middle stage, I should say, is conscious competence. That's when an individual finally has gotten enough repetitions and knowledge to become aware of their lack of knowledge or skill, but they consciously know what they need to know and they can actively start working on it. They just need to think about it before they can consciously apply it, but they're making progress. And then with enough repetitions in time, they reach the final stage, which is unconscious competence. That's when someone has internalized that knowledge to the level that that knowledge or skill becomes second nature to them. And you, as a manager, as a leader in your organization, have a ton of skills and knowledge that's unconscious to you. You don't know how much you know because it's just second nature to you. And this whole process of the competency curve can be applied to any area of development, whether it's technical or soft skills or communication skills or leadership. The amount of time is where the big suck comes in. The amount of time it takes for a person to move from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence can vary depending on the individual and or the task, skill they're trying to learn. So prior factors such as knowledge, experience, aptitude, the complexity of the skill, those all play a role in determining how long it's going to take for them to reach unconscious competence. But let me tell you, when you hire this new person, you don't know. Even if you hire people with multiple years of experience, you still don't know how long it's going to take them to reach the level of competence that's going to replace the person who's been there 2 years, 3 years, more. So in general, it's going to take anywhere from a few weeks at a minimum, and that's going to be on a very simple kind of responsibility, to months, somewhere between 6 and 9 months. It's typically it's that 9-month mark of being in a job before somebody really becomes unconsciously competent. So think about that, how that impacts you. I just lost somebody who's been here for 2 or 3 years. I bring a new person in, their experience, but it's still going to take them up to 9 months to fill that same level of knowledge and skill that the person who walked out the door. So don't you want to retain and take care of the people you have? Of course you do. And reaching this unconscious competence can take even longer based on someone's behavior or job fit. So you got to make sure they're a good fit when you hire them, for your culture, for you, for the skills, the passion, the natural skills. That's where DISC comes in. That's where DISC is a valuable tool to you, for you personally to understand your behavior and communication style, but also to understand how to properly hire someone. It's like a check digit after the interview to make sure that this person is a natural fit into this role. And if you haven't taken advantage of my free DISC assessment offer, there's a link in the show notes. Take it. And that all comes with a 1-hour consultation with me, which you've got to take advantage of. You will not receive the value of that tool unless you talk to me about it. So click on the link, take 15 minutes, take the assessment, learn about yourself, and then as you and I speak through the consultation, the debrief on your DISC assessment, you'll be able to start now associating some of these very observable behaviors to others in your organization. I can show you the Success Insights Wheel tool that's part of that, where you can plot on a chart whether somebody's going to be successful in a position or not. It's really an amazing tool. And so let's talk about why people leave. All right. Overall, we all agree that turnover creates extra work for you. But understand that people don't work for companies, they work for you. People don't leave companies, they don't leave bad jobs, they leave their bosses or bad fits of a boss. And I will guarantee you that any of these bosses that this employee has deemed to be a bad fit or a bad boss for them, not one of those bosses gets up every morning and says, I'm going to get up and go piss off as many people as I can. I just want to be unsuitable for as many people as possible. They don't do that. They don't get up with that mindset. They don't want to do that, but they don't know what they don't know. And that may be why you're listening to this podcast, because it's for anyone who wants to be a better boss due to all the pains I've just listed, So, statistically, 51% of all employees who leave were left because they were not engaged with their boss. They were unhappy. So they weren't fully committed to the job, which set them adrift. And this unhappiness, which comes from multiple places, but primarily the person they're working for, that's the main reason employees leave. Yet what exactly causes people to be unhappy? We can identify those and put into place some leadership tactics that will make everybody happy. But this decision for your employees to leave your organization and leave you bad reviews on Indeed or Glassdoor, which makes it harder to hire. See, that stuff just doesn't happen overnight. That bad relationship didn't happen in the first day or the first week of the first month. It happens day after day after day for months and months and months, sometimes longer. Sometimes they've been around a long time and they're slowly draining the employee's enthusiasm, their desire to bring their best the best selves to work every day. And you're in control, my friends. You're in control. So let's go fix that. Here are the 7 issues that I've identified that will slowly drain a person's desire to not work for an organization. The first one is the simplest, but it's the most grossly misused, not used, I'm grasping for a word here, poorly applied, is a lack of appreciation. See, people who are working for you, Mr. or Miss Boss, they spend a great deal of time at work. And if they get the feeling they're not appreciated, well, that puts a hole in the boat. And it slowly sinks them. It sinks their energy, sinks their desire, it sinks their motivation, commitment. And it's just a lack of appreciation, lack of recognition that their boss sees them doing their job. Because in their mind, believe me, they're working hard and they're doing good work, but nobody seems to notice. That's a desire killer. So, and along those same lines is in another area is the lack of caring or taking interest in the employees, their special interest outside of work. I mean, we spend so much time at work. We should, and most people do, expect others to take an interest in us, especially their boss. And if we want people who report to us to support us as their bosses, well, we need to support them. We want the people who report to us to have a connection with you and you a connection with them. And if they're going through a difficult time, you need to be part of that to support them. You need to have that empathy. Because when employees feel a genuine connection with their leader, their role, the organization, they're much stronger collaborators. They bring up great ideas, suggestions. They have much more initiative. They communicate more with you. They're much more engaged. And that's all plus, 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 plus. And it literally costs you nothing. Nothing. It's a simple change of habit. So how do I do this? So stop being buried in your work with your head down all day. Relieve some of that pressure and get into the habit in managing and leading by walking around. Not all day. Set an alarm. Some kind of reminder to stop with the drudgery, get up, and go walk around. Say hi to folks. Ask how they're doing. Is there anything you need? Anything I can do for you? Show some interest. How was the game this weekend? How's your son doing? How's school? How's your grandma doing? Is there anything I can do for you? Yeah, I need a new refrigerator. Oh, okay. Just kidding. But if they ask for something that's truly reasonable, most are, by God, go do it. You have to follow through with these requests or you take yourself out by the knees. You've got to respond to their request. If you say you're going to do something, by God, do it. And if you don't, well, they're going to stop hearing you because you're not listening to them. And in time, they're going to lose that connection with you. You've broken the trust. So don't do that. Make sure that you're organized enough to remember to take care of what you said you're going to take care of. Even if it's, I heard about one recently where someone had gotten married and it's been 6 months and her name hadn't been changed in the payroll system. And she told her boss multiple times, hey, I need you to change my name in the payroll system. And it's so simple and probably means nothing to the boss, but it meant something to her. I've asked my boss to do something. He's not doing it. But let's go back to managing by walking around. Say thanks. Keep up the good work. Be sincere about it. And as I share many times, please, 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 this is going to be huge for you. Catch them doing something right and let them know that you see it. Be looking for it. Don't only be out there with your eyes tuned into finding something wrong. Tune your eyes and your brain into catching them doing it right. And if your expectations, this is something else that I hear about often. If your expectation standards are determined, your expectation standards for your employees is determined by how you can go do things, you go and accomplish things, your mindset, well, your bar is set way too high, my friend, because it is rare that anybody that's working for you is going to have that same standard, and they never will. Your personal high standards is likely one of the key reasons why you're in a management role. But your employees, your direct reports, they just want to do a good job. They want their boss to tell them they're doing a good job. They want to be secure. Not many of those, your folks want a promotion. They just want to do a good job and go home. Earn a paycheck and go home. It's about 70% of the population or more. But please, they simply want to be recognized. It's so important to humans for somebody, especially their boss, to recognize what they're doing, what they're accomplishing, and letting them know. And along those same lines is many organizations, this is hard to change sometimes as if you're a little far down the pecking order, you may or may not be able to control much of this. But if you're a business owner, you're a business executive, which many of you are listening to this show, you cannot take and fool yourself with a one-size-fits-all appreciation, all staff appreciation. See, many organizations, many companies have an employee appreciation day once a year, once a quarter, where everyone is acknowledged and treated the same. Yeah, your guys are great. Thank you all. And they mistakenly pat themselves on the back for doing their appreciation thing. Check. They fulfilled that task. They read it somewhere in Fortune magazine or something. They need to do that, so they did it. It's done. Well, that's nice. I'm not discouraging that. That's part of appreciation. But this appreciation day, it falls far short of what your employees really need to feel appreciated, to feel connected, aligned, and motivated. The problem is that not everyone has the same skill sets. Not everyone is delivering at the same level. They're not contributing equally. Not everyone's bringing about the same effort. And when everybody receives that same recognition as someone who does the least amount of work possible, those who go above and beyond, bringing an extra enthusiasm to their work, give their best day every day, when all you're doing is a all staff appreciation day, well, all you're doing is giving a participation trophy. And you all know American business is generally run as a meritocracy. So you got to give credit to the team members. In addition to an appreciation for everybody, you have to find opportunities or approaches, behaviors, best practices, whatever it is. Give credit to your team members who deserve extra appreciation for going and above and beyond. And again, it does not have to be expensive. Simple is often better. It just needs to be thoughtful and it needs to be sincere. So, I'm dwelling a little bit on this, I'm sorry, but I'm very passionate about this. Get your head out of the drudge and change it up. You're going to get paid back in huge ROI. You're going to get more productivity. You're going to get less drama. You're going to have a better culture. And the theme of this whole show is less turnover. So not only should you be recognizing your people for their achievements, but you should also be able to communicate how they wish to be recognized. This is, again, where the DISC comes in. The DISC will tell you how they like to be recognized. What approach, whether it's personal, quiet, public, whatever it is, whatever method it works best for them, that's what you want to follow. And so it's really important for you to know people, your people. Don't guess. That's what DISC is for. It takes the guessing out of this. To know your people well enough to appreciate them in a way that is powerful to them, not to you. It's not one size fits all. So giving verbal or written communication, a card, a above and beyond document, or just a pat on the back. It works so well, and it's so little effort. And if you don't have something along these lines in your toolbox, please start thinking about it. And there's a boatload of ways you can do this, but you got to consciously go do it. Next thing, provide opportunities for professional development. So offer training, certifications, mentoring. Let them know that there's career advancement opportunities, if there are. Give them a career roadmap. Give them a scale of pay that as they get more and more skilled and knowledgeable, that they can advance their pay within the organization. That drives the behaviors you're looking for. But if you're one of these companies, one of these organizations that raises are ad hoc and it's kind of just whenever I feel like it, and don't laugh if you're in one of those, you're working luckily for one of these companies that has a very structured review and raise process. Many companies, smaller private companies don't. We need to work on getting that in place. And please contact me. I've got every tool imaginable. And they're simple, they're easy to use to get you on a great program for professional development for your team. Reviews and raises, compensation guidelines, I've got all that. But give bonuses, give raises, give some kind of financial award for someone who's given you tangible, above and beyond workload. And you've got to, in today's competitive marketplace, you've got to pay your team fairly. Saving a few bucks in today's competitive and hot job market is setting yourself up for failure. Turnover. This small amount that you'll spend paying people market wages is more than covered in improved morale, retention, and productivity. It's a little intangible. For you high C's on the DISC scale, it's a little hard to prove that. Excuse me, but it's provable. Show some flexibility. Think about allowing your folks to have more flexible schedules, work arrangements. Think about that. It's a hot thing now, the 4-day work week. You can reward them with extra time off. That is one of the most valuable rewards you can offer right now in today's workplace culture. Reward your employees with extra time off or paid time off as a way of showing your appreciation. Super valuable. Give gifts. Great way to show appreciation. And if you know there's something special or unique about their passions or their hobbies or whatever, and make that gift or small token something that's tied to them personally, oh my God, that's going to impact them so deeply. And there are certain people, especially the D's and I's on the DISC scale, they love public acknowledgement. Think about that, putting it out on the company newsletter, at the daily stand-up or the quarterly appreciation day, having a whole litany of people that get to come up on stage and get an appreciation award for going above and beyond, and they're only the ones that really going above and beyond. But letting everybody know about it. People love to see their names, and they love the name of their name coming off the tongue of their boss when it's good. So personalize that recognition. Tailor it to the way that employee thinks and has passions around. The next thing to avoid is unfairness and favoritism. And that's so easy to trip yourself up on. There's different levels of talents. There's different levels of responsibility within your organization. And we expect standards or promotions and rules of conduct to be applied equally to all employees. Then you got to apply it equally. Few things are as upsetting as some people getting away with things like coming late to work or taking it, being slow at work. Everybody has to be held accountable equally. And they expect follow-through for these underperformers because not being, you may not think you're showing favoritism, but if you're not addressing poor performance, you're showing favoritism unknowingly. And that really is a sore point and it drains performance. So hold people accountable. The resentment and anger, and you'll have no idea, especially if you don't have an open line of communication and a good relationship with your employees. The resentment and anger that comes from you're just mistakenly showing favoritism in the wrong way. It creates this perception. It creates a toxic environment where they're going to be gossiping with each other. And it's just nothing good comes from that. Be careful with it. Another tip is allow your people some autonomy. You see, in order to feel fulfilled and valuable and important, and most people want to feel valued and important, I think, you need to have some say in what you do, what your work looks like, what they work on, maybe have a say in being involved in some of the company's goals, maybe being asked their opinion on work-related decisions. So think about that. Collaborate with your team. Ask their opinions. Get their input. And then value it. The best work happens when leaders trust their employees because they know that they can count on them. They're aligned and committed. So give them some authority. Allow them to make some decisions and solve problems on their own. Help them be a solver. Don't just answer their questions. Yes, just when they come to you all day, this drives a lot of people who are listening to this show nuts, is they're barraged all day with, how do I do this? How do I do that? What about this? Can you do this? Can you do that? They're getting a million questions and requests all day. Back that off by giving your team some autonomy. Give them the opportunity to answer their own questions. Say something like, hey, that's a good question. What do how have you handled it in the past? Who have you seen handle it in the past, and how have they done it? What are you thinking? What are you thinking the best way to handle that is? Something along those lines. Don't just answer the question. Communication. Communication openly and honestly. Never once in all my career, and I've always been an open book, never once when I was transparent and honest with the people when they asked me a question or I was addressing them, did that ever hurt me. That never got me in trouble. So honest communication, transparency, listening to employees' feedback. When they've got an opinion, they've got a problem, don't be defensive. Don't argue with them. Listen. You can dispel a lot of negative energy by just listening. And if you're listening and not trying to fight them through all this, whatever grievance they have, you might learn something. Something would be very valuable to you to go work on. And I mentioned this earlier. Give them a career roadmap. Give them the opportunity to do some advancement. Think about leading by example. You cannot do as I say, not as I do. You got to know that your folks are following you. I talk about this in the inspirational leadership course. They're watching you all day, every day, and they're following your cues. And if it's okay for you to shortcut or violate or not do something that you expect them to do, they're not going to respect you very much. So make sure you're leading by example. Keep that in mind. So, again, if you want to know about their passions, let's get the DISC assessment to them. Another thing that they need to understand is the company's missions and values. A lot of companies out there have not communicated or even created a company mission or an annual mission. If you want your employees to work hard for you, they need to understand what the target is, what the goal is. They need to understand how their work fits into this bigger picture and how it contributes to the company's success. Almost everybody walking on this earth in America today and other countries, we're big in Belgium, by the way, is how they can contribute to the company's success. They want to be part of a winner, and they want to be able to contribute to that winning score. Another great thing, cost you nothing, is allow them to contribute, collaborate, team up on projects, assignments, have them solve problems as team members. It fosters this sense of community and belonging and trust and importance. I completely turned around, a customer service issue I had for a big company I was working for years ago. And not big, it was $2 billion with a B that I ran. And I had a customer service issue. And you know who fixed it? My employees. I put teams together for them to solve it, and you know what they did? With very little involvement by me, they solved the customer service issue quickly and permanently. You can do that same thing. So, as a final takeaway, we're going to wrap this thing up as a final takeaway. Please stop and consider some of these suggestions I shared with you today. And if some of these make sense for you to adopt, one or two of them, certainly not all of them, because I'm sure you're doing some of these things, but if there's one or two that really stand out to you, write it down. And then think about the actions you need to take, the changes you need to make in order to adopt that new habit, that new best practice, that new leadership approach. And most importantly, as I preach and preach and preach, you got to put a timeline to it. By when do you want to have this accomplished and be part of your leadership toolbox. Commit to adopting any of these new beneficial habits. And it's going to make you the best boss, the best leader you can possibly be. I would be so honored to hear back from you. Anybody listening to this show, the thousands and thousands of people who are listening to this show right now and each month and over the year. Be so proud to hear from you that you adopted one of these that I shared with you today, that you made the change and you saw the success. Share it with me. I'd love to hear it. So that's it for today. Thank you as always for listening. Please visit our website, rdltraining.com, for more information. That's Romeo Delta Lima Training.com for all of our training, our programs, our services. And y'all keep it up out there.